McGraw-Hill Ascent Audio presents the Lean Tech Manifesto. Learn the secrets of tech leaders to grasp the full benefits of Agile at scale. By Fabrice Bernard and Benoît Charles-Lavauzelle. Narrated by Daniel Henning. Forward. Business as usual, it is now clear, will not be enough to meet the existential challenges facing the world. If we are to keep up with the pace of change, we will need to develop creative new solutions and learn to scale them much more quickly. That is what this book is about. It tells the story of Theodo, a tech pioneer company at the heart of this struggle, designing new tech systems for startups and corporations. Over the past decade or so, Theodo has found new and more effective ways to work with one another and with clients, and to scale their activities as the business grew from 10 to 700 people and generated revenues of $100 million. Theodo achieved this by constantly challenging established best business practices, including Agile, and seeking new ones by testing what works in a tech business and what doesn't. It distills its lessons into the Lean Tech Manifesto, so others can learn from its experiences. The lessons it shares don't only apply to tech firms, but are equally relevant to established businesses struggling to avoid the bureaucratic rigidities that slow them down as they grow. A key source of inspiration for Theodo, and the antidote it has found to bureaucracy, has been lean thinking, and the set of values, principles, and practices behind Toyota's business system, which propelled Toyota to #1 in the auto industry. Over 30 years ago, Western carmakers scrambled to respond to the discovery that Toyota could produce a car with 0 defects with half the human effort and cost, a feat Toyota accomplished by developing the problem-solving skills of frontline teams to master their own work to achieve right first time, on time, every time, and analyze the root causes of every interruption. Over time, they could then link upstream and downstream steps in a just-in-time flow from raw materials to finished goods, triggered by the pull of demand. The famous Toyota production system turns out to be a learning system for the synchronization and continuous improvement of any organization, no matter how complex. Less widely known was that Toyota also learned how to design a new car in half the time and with half the effort and cost, turning traditional waterfall project management into a continuous development system for successive product generations. Again, the team monitors progress and right first time and addresses problems immediately, so steps can be tightly synchronized. This system is led by a chief engineer who captures information and feedback from customers, engineering, and production, and decides what needs to change and what needs to stay the same for the next product generation, instead of changing everything at once. This book also tells how these ideas had a profound influence on tech industry pioneers Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos, and led to many new software development practices of the Agile movement, like extreme programming, Scrum, and DevOps. Critically, and this is perhaps its biggest contribution, it also describes how Agile practices can only be scaled by embedding them in a learning organization focused on developing capabilities through systematic learning by problem solving. These different ways of working together also present new challenges for leaders, as authors Fabrice Bernard and Benoît Charles-Lavauzelle have learned while creating and scaling up Theodo's own lean system over the course of the past decade. The nature of decision-making, they realized, changes, from buying expertise to doing things for you, to hiring the right talent and developing internal capabilities. Direction is set by articulating the performance gaps to be closed and aligning the activities of teams around them. Finally, the development of teams' problem-solving capabilities to close those gaps happens thanks to the deployment of the most experienced associates as teachers and mentors. This is an important book. It describes the business system that organizations around the world so desperately need, and it reminds us that when it comes to solving the complex and urgent problems of our time, human decision-making and teamwork are just as important as technology. Daniel T. Jones, Monmouth, United Kingdom. Author's note. To provide context to listeners curious about our story, we've included this optional section, which is not essential to understand the remainder of the book. Our journey. Escaping the corporate world. On March 4, 2006, Roger Federer defended his title against Rafael Nadal in the Dubai Tennis Championship final. By then, Federer had established his dominance in tennis. As the world's number one for 2 years, his winning streak of 81 out of 85 games at the time made him almost unstoppable. Almost, that is, but for one rising star, Rafael Nadal, who, in only 3 encounters, had already defeated Federer twice. For tennis superfans, this 4th encounter in Dubai was the turning point that would show whether Nadal's victories had been a fluke or the beginning of one of the most intense rivalries in tennis history. Benoît is a tennis superfan, and he didn't want to miss witnessing this. Unfortunately, watching the game required access to a niche pay TV channel that Benoît didn't have. Undaunted, he set off to find a place with the right subscription and a willingness to show the game. In a big city with hundreds of bars, this shouldn't be too difficult, he thought. As he wandered around a neighborhood known for its large number of bars, Benoît started to worry. The venues he visited either didn't have the channel, were not keen on showing sports in the middle of the afternoon, or were already showing another game. By the time the game had started, Benoît was still searching. Despair was setting in. 2 hours after leaving his apartment, Benoît finally walked past the Bombardier, a quintessentially English pub that shared his passion for sports and was showing the game on one of its screens. Relieved, Benoît could finally sit down and enjoy the game, but by then he'd missed the first half. After the game, he called Fabrice to share his frustration. We convinced ourselves that this was a problem that an internet startup could and should solve. Close to finishing our studies, we jumped on this opportunity to escape the corporate world that was waiting for us and launched allomatch.com, now part of fanzo.com, a barfinder website for every sports fan who's ever asked, "Does anyone know a place that will be showing?" Fabrice built the very first version of allomatch.com overnight. At the time, we didn't know anything about professional software engineering technologies, nor methodologies. We also didn't have much money or time as we were still students. We focused on delivering value as rapidly and cheaply as we possibly could. The first version was hacked together using Joomla, one of the open-source content management systems available at the time. We then very quickly onboarded customers because the most time-efficient way to have the information about when a bar was showing a game was to ask the bar owners to provide it themselves every week. Once the first few early adopters had agreed to contribute their information, we nurtured these precious relationships by quickly updating the product to show them we took their feedback seriously. Finally, we turned the product into a paid subscription early on, to reassure ourselves that there were customers ready to pay for our new service before we committed to the project full-time. During the first 2 years, allomatch.com's focus on delivering value as efficiently as possible made us very user-centric and iterative in our product approach, which helped us sign up hundreds of clients and grow the traffic to millions of visitors a year. Our initial quick iterative approach didn't prevent us from hitting two obstacles, one on the tech side and another on the business side. On the tech side, after 2 years, the technical debt caught up with us. When Fabrice started coding Allomatch, he was an inexperienced graduate student. As a result, Allomatch did not follow much industry best practice. The accumulation of quick and dirty iterations made every new edition difficult to build. We almost apologized to the new developers we hired. We were not the only ones in the world facing these issues at the time. An innovation was spreading in the web industry to address that exact technological bottleneck: open-source MVC, Model View Controller, frameworks. These were free, pre-built architectures. Django for Python, Ruby on Rails for Ruby, and Symfony for PHP. They were accessible to any developer, even junior ones. It was like wanting to build a house and having somebody give you solid foundations for free. For engineers like us, it was easy to understand the value of such a framework. It accelerated development and provided the guide rails that helped us avoid creating a spaghetti code base. After 4 months of hard work, the code base was finally migrated to Symfony, and it was night and day on the tech side. The framework delivered on its promise to make evolutions easier to implement and ensure better quality with its built-in best practices. Overall, Symfony allowed Allomatch's codebase to grow for another 12 years without needing a rewrite. The second obstacle was on the business side. After 2 years, Allomatch was not generating enough revenue to sustain itself. Our focus on efficiency had kept our costs low, but we were barely earning enough to be profitable. Our quick, iterative approach had helped us sign up more than 100 clients, but we hadn't taken the necessary step back to realize that we were addressing a too small market. Despite putting in a lot of effort, we could not find a way to pivot Allomatch to a different, bigger market. One late evening, walking in the street after work, we talked about our lack of options and worryingly low cash levels. That's when we remembered that a few days before, an entrepreneur we knew had told us he wanted to build his own piece of software to help him scale his business. We had recommended him to someone else, but then realized we'd missed a revenue opportunity that could keep the company afloat for a few more months. We called him and convinced him that we could help. Together, we built a tech product that was a game changer for his business. It helped him scale much faster by reducing the time it took to serve his clients from 1 week to 3 hours. When a larger player in his industry saw this, the company offered to acquire his business. The product lived on within the acquiring company and continued to generate growth for another decade. When this first experiment in building tech products for a client ended up being both a thrilling challenge and also a huge success, we saw an opportunity to relaunch ourselves in a new industry. That's how Theodo started, as a tech product builder for startups and small businesses. Theodo. Finding Theodo's first clients was not particularly hard. Many startups and SMEs needed to build a tech product, lacked the capability to do so, and were struggling to find a provider they could trust. With Allomatch.com as a readily available reference and our successful migration to the Symfony framework, we could demonstrate both our product and tech expertise to prospective clients. What we did not have was a strong methodology. We tried offering an Agile-only approach, which seemed closest to our experience building Allomatch, but our clients were reluctant to give up the reassurance of upfront specifications and fixed price. So we tried a creative blend of traditional project management with Agile practices. Sadly, that blend combined the worst of both worlds: delayed start because of the long specification phase, teams left to figure out implementation on their own, and misunderstandings discovered at the end. A project in 2011 illustrated how bad that approach could be. Two brothers came to us to build their online counseling platform. They were passionate about their project and determined to do something meaningful. As it was a new product, we felt it was important to be able to iterate and advise them to use Agile methods for that. But they insisted they knew exactly what they wanted, so we started working on their initial requirements without challenging them very much. As we built the product, however, their understanding of what they wanted changed. They asked for modifications and new features accordingly, and we reluctantly agreed to unsatisfactory compromises. The budget had been set in stone up front, so each change was additional unplanned work and costs. Even worse, when they finally began to test the market, they realized that the platform as they had imagined it was completely useless. They needed something different and decided to throw away the whole thing. It was a big failure for everyone. At the end of the project, they invited us out for a drink to debrief. One of the brothers was very blunt and told us that we were good technically, but we'd screwed up the product. It was hard to hear, and we challenged him. He was the one who had rejected our recommendation to work in a fully agile way. We will never forget his answer. "When I go to the doctor, I don't show up with the prescription. You are the expert, and you have to tell me what the course of action is. If Agile was the way to succeed, it was your responsibility to impose it on us." That discussion was a shock and an eye-opener. He was right, of course. We could not push the responsibility of knowing the right methodology onto our client. If we didn't believe in the way we worked, then it was time we did something about it. Galvanized by the two brothers' challenge, we decided to radically change our approach with our next clients. We decided to go all in on Agile and either succeed at making our clients happy or reconsider our commitment to growing a consultancy. Going all in on Agile. Deciding to involve the client and iterate on the product to become fully Agile was not that straightforward. Agile was not compatible with our fixed-price business model. If we involved the client and future users during product development and allowed them to ask for changes at every iteration, that would make the initial specifications and corresponding pricing moot after the first few iterations. Our contracts were based on those initial specifications and pricing. We decided to strengthen our Agile and Scrum expertise by training with Jeff Sutherland, the co-founder of Scrum himself. He wanted to make sure we had a deep enough understanding and the credibility to reassure our clients that with the quality of our implementation, their project would be a success. We also adapted our business model to align incentives for the client and the tech team, and we started billing by the sprint, a set period of time with a defined work product. This time and material model ensured we could be agile on specifications without having to renegotiate the initial contract at every change. It also meant that both parties felt immediately accountable when things took longer than expected and started to address it together. Both parties also felt similarly excited when coming up with an ingenious way to build the same feature in less time. As a result of these changes, we could invite clients into the development teams in the role of product owner. Our teams previously had sporadic interactions with clients. Now, they began to have daily conversations with them, on top of half-day meetings each week as part of our one-week sprints. Every team had a Scrum Master in charge of ensuring correct methodology implementation and facilitating conversations between the engineers, who were often younger and reserved, and the clients, who were typically outspoken and more experienced business leaders. We also began to work with very detailed specifications, but just for the next 2 or 3 weeks of work, rather than for the whole project as a waterfall approach requires. Finally, we increased accountability within the team. We made progress visible by splitting the work in increments of less than a day and using a burn-down chart every morning to show whether the team was going faster or slower than its target. This made everyone fully aware of problems the morning after they appeared, during the daily stand-up meeting. We also introduced the discipline of doing a retrospective every time a delay occurred to learn from the problem and identify potential countermeasures. The results exceeded our wildest expectations. Demanding as it was, our clients loved this system. They could see the product they wanted being built before their eyes every day. They also liked being part of the team, engaging regularly with our developers and benefiting from their engineering insights. Problems were now solved as soon as they appeared, which let us keep customer satisfaction high. Not only did our clients become much happier, but they were excited to entrust us with a lot more of their projects and recommend us to their networks. We started having more and more inbound clients thanks to positive word of mouth. Our revenue almost tripled that year. We became vocal advocates of Agile, spreading the benefits we'd experienced to many more organizations. The growth challenges that Agile didn't solve. This marked the beginning of a long period of fast growth, which created new challenges. We started working on bigger projects. We found it hard to scale Agile to multiple teams collaborating toward the same objective. At the time, Agile at scale frameworks like SAFe or LESS had not yet been released. Some simple ideas had quickly emerged, like coordinating multiple Scrum teams through a weekly meeting of team leaders. Jeff Sutherland, the co-founder of Scrum we had trained with, called this the Scrum of Scrums. But there was no tried and tested path for scaling Agile to multiple teams in the way that Scrum and Extreme Programming, XP, had been a clear path to implementing Agile in a single team. While working on bigger software projects, we also discovered a second limit. With more code came bigger quality challenges. But those quality challenges had become less of a focus in the Agile community. Early on in the Agile movement, XP was a leading methodology that put a lot of emphasis on tech quality. For example, XP includes rules on how to code, such as all production code is pair programmed. Code the unit test first. All code must pass all unit tests before it can be released. Or refactor whenever and wherever possible. Yet the Agile methodologies that spread widely and eventually dominated in the community were those associated with improving delivery, leaving us without much help on our challenges to maintain code quality at scale. More generally, Agile methodologies didn't provide any guidance on how to run a faster-growing company. The Agile community didn't often discuss how to find and delight customers, recruit, train, and retain talent, maintain quality at scale, or finance growth. These growth-related challenges made us realize that Agile methodologies had their limits when it came to scaling. We started looking for help on how to scale our tech organization while staying Agile. Through our involvement with the pioneers of the French Agile community, we had many discussions about what worked and what didn't on large software and within large organizations. No one felt they'd cracked it. Many had managed to inject Agile principles in large organizations, but they had seen little real effect if the organization was too large and didn't have the right culture. But we didn't despair. The existence of inspiring companies such as Amazon, Apple, Google, and Tesla had convinced us to continue looking for ways to create that culture. One day at the Agile Open, a 3-day self-organized Agile unconference in the Alsatian countryside, Fabrice met someone who claimed he'd found a way. Antoine Contal had tried to apply Agile at scale at a large telecom company. Failing to do so, he'd looked for inspiration in the roots of the movement, and there had found a framework, lean thinking, that had worked where previous efforts had failed. His examples resonated with our own experience, so we asked him to give us some guidance. He'd quit the large telecom company he was working for to become a lean coach, so he was in a position not only to share his journey, but also to help us through our own. We jumped on that opportunity to learn more about Lean and agreed to a first coaching session. The discovery of Lean. Antoine Contal asked us right away, in true Lean sensei style, to not sit in a meeting room, but to go and see how we were creating value. We looked forward to demonstrating our Agile expertise, in particular one of our recent innovations, the Project Foam Board. Since switching to Agile, every team tracked its progress using sticky notes on the wall, organized in 5 columns: backlog, sprint backlog, doing, to validate, and done. Not only did that require a lot of wall space for each team, it also prevented the teams from changing location within the office, or, even more challenging, from bringing their stickies to a meeting outside the office. After 2 days of researching solutions and evaluating different options for solving that problem, someone gave us the idea of foam boards. Very large but also very lightweight boards that each team would use as a place to stick its Post-it notes. Now, teams could move their boards, and the board became the thing that communicated everything there was to know about a project at a glance. This visibility helped immensely with our customer collaboration, one of the 4 key values of the Agile Manifesto. But when Antoine looked at our project boards, something bothered him. "Are you looking at client satisfaction?" We said that we were. "Great, but I can't see it." We were sending our clients a weekly survey to ask how they felt about the speed of the team and about the collaboration's quality. For some reason, we'd not thought about putting that information on the project board, the place we claimed had all the information about the project's status. "Why don't you stick the information on the project board so that the whole team can see it?" Antoine asked. That was the first aha moment of our Lean journey. Antoine had seen something that to him was obviously waste and used his Lean coaching skills to make it suddenly visible to us, too. We did as Antoine suggested. Every week, from that moment onward, the client survey was pinned on the project board, telling the team directly and immediately how the client felt about their work. This alone would have already been very impactful. Antoine also challenged us to do more than just relying on individuals and interactions, the first value of the Agile Manifesto, to get problems solved. Leaving people alone to sort out their problems might work with experienced teams, but what about less experienced ones? Antoine showed us a number of problem-solving techniques our teams could learn to solve the problems surfaced by the weekly client forms, or any other problem they faced. He also convinced us of the importance of management supporting teams, not by solving their problems, but by coaching them as they solve their own problems. These small changes were game changers for Theodo. They marked the start of our Lean journey. Our client satisfaction on projects improved 20% from an already good level over the following 2 years. Our revenues grew by a factor of 10 over the following 4 years. We successfully scaled from 12 to 84 hires a year. Transforming legacy IT into a tech company. With Antoine's help, we developed a reputation for pushing the Agile envelope. Soon enough, serendipity brought us to Bruno, a CIO at a large bank who was determined to explore what real Agile looked like in a large organization. His plan was to partner with a software consultancy at the forefront of Agile, build a few teams who would try their hardest to bring startup velocity to his large IT organization, and then spread it across the organization. It seemed like a perfect match for us. Excited by the challenge and naive enough to underestimate the hurdles ahead of us, we agreed to show the organization what good looked like and build it a mobile app in only 6 weeks. 6 weeks later, the app was live, but it went against almost every one of the bank's internal IT processes. Delivering the app had required multiple clearances and direct sponsorship at the highest level. It was a great proof of concept, but a solution that relied on getting exceptional permissions from the bank's COO was not sustainable. The permissions were temporary anyway, so after a few weeks, the app...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?